Hello, my beautiful light beings. Welcome back to the Magic Exists podcast with Dani Margeaux. I have a wonderful guest here. Her name is Gabrielle Celeste. She is an intuitive astrologist who has conducted over 650 channeled astrology readings. She is the co-host of internationally recognized podcast, the Spiritual Sisters podcast, and the owner of Awa Astrology. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here today during the Scorpio season at time of recording.
Yes. So excited. So the first question I like to ask all my guests is, what is your strongest Clair and how does that present in your life and in your work?
Ooh, okay. I love this question. I actually think it's not what people might assume it to be per how I've branded myself and my business, I suppose, and like the type of information I share. I would say that my strongest clair is my clairsentience, believe it or not. So clear feeling. However, I would identify and do identify as a strong seer, a strong clairvoyance as well. But my clairsentience is what came online first. And I've really trained my clairvoyance to support me, especially as I'm doing intuitive work.
Ah, I love that so much. And that's actually like one of my non-strongest ones, clairsentience.
Really?
So I always love when people are bringing that in. I think for me, it's so interwoven to the claircognizance that sometimes I can't like understand or get a clear image of like which one's working like stronger than the other. And
Mm.
I just allow them to kind of come together.
Do you get confused between your clear hearing and clear knowing ever?
I don't think so in that, but they do work together really strongly because it's like
Mhm.
it comes in and then you just know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about the astrology. So when this comes out, this is going to be one of the first episodes or the last episodes of 2025, 2026. And so talking about the astrology of 2026, I know this year was crazy. And
Yeah.
so if there's anything that the listeners can really like look forward to or be kind of aware of for the next year.
Yeah, I think 2025 was I mean, for you, I think it was a phenomenal year because you had so many life changes, so congrats again on your recent nuptials. When we had you on my show, I know you were just about to get married, which was so cool. Hadn't even realized it was that close to recording. I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's working the week of her wedding, like, go you," you know? But yeah, 2025, I think overall, at least for the people that I've spoken with, for the majority, it was a really tough year. Lots of purging, energy that doesn't serve you was either going to be let go of by force or free will. And that certainly aligns with not only the astrology that occurred, but also the numerology. And 2026 is significantly different than 2025 and even the years prior, because the way that I've liked to describe 2026 on this kind of like podcasts like stretch I've had, and it's typical for me because I like to go on to podcasts if they'll have me. So thank you again. Um, to explain just like the upcoming year, and 2026 is really the year that makes 2020 through 2025 make sense, not just from the astrology, but from the numerology and just all the energetics at play.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And yes, I was just on Gabrielle's amazing podcast. Go check it out. The Spiritual Sisters, so beautiful. And so, a lot of the new spiritual awakenings have been happening since 2020. The pandemic, I feel like that's really what pushed me into
Mhm.
kind of going inward and trying to find out, who I am, what is my purpose. And so, exactly what you said this year, very much felt like that inner alchemy of like releasing what's no longer serving and like moving into the new, right? And so how can someone support, I guess, their like grounding in and embodying more of who they want to bring forward for the year of 2026?
Yeah, I think, I mean, going off of it's interesting. So I kind of want to back it up before I even get going because I have so many thoughts coming through in my crown. I think I would have answered that so differently if you would have asked me this question a year ago. And I just recently went through a really, really long stretch of internal deep shadow work. And that I think inherently is going to teach you so much. But at its core, what I think shadow work is going to provide you the opportunity with is to get closer to what not only your values are, your value alignment system might be, but also it be the most true to your authentic healed self. So everything that's internally reflected to you and what like you value on that level as opposed to like what external definitions of success you might be prioritizing or just that's all especially if you're doing the work and you're healing to break from consensus consciousness.
Yeah, so beautiful. And so tell us a little bit about your story because you said you went through this like second kind of shadow work. transformation of Gabrielle. And
Mhm.
so how did you go through like your spiritual awakening? What led you here into this like amazing astrologic, mentor, teacher, etc.?
Oh, thank you for saying that. That's so kind of you. I would say, well, initially I got into it in my Saturn return, but I had always really been interested in this work. So I'm Hispanic, and the name of my business is very much named after my heavy water chart, and also it's in reverence to my ancestry and my lineage. And we would always, my dad, so as I was so from when I was so young, like he would literally watch this astrologer on TV on Univision, and his name was Walter Mercado, and he passed, I think, in 2020. But this guy was a fucking legend, like icon, revolutionary. He would like on this like chair and be dressed up in the most gaudy outfits. And, we would back then we didn't have like replays or like recordings. And so we would religiously catch that. So I was always intrigued. And I think now looking back, I was always highly intuitive. I just don't know that it was ever like in my face as directly as it was up until my Saturn return, because at that point too, I was, like, heavy in the collective 3D consciousness, like, in the programming, and because that's what I thought I had to do, right? I thought that was the right way to go about doing life, and I checked all the boxes, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh," and so, long story short, I've talked about this significantly on my podcast. I basically was the fall guy for a multi-million dollar investigation, and I was heavily accused of doing things I was certainly not guilty of, and this was, like, literally a 2 to 3 year period. And I remember my girlfriend, she was studying Vedic astrology at the time, and she asked me for my birth information, and she introduced me to birth charts, and from then I've never looked back. And so that just spiraled and went from one thing to another. And since then, I've had my spiritual awakening, I've done the shadow work, I've launched my business, and in April of 2026 I'll be 4 years into my business, which I think is so crazy, so exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. It, like, doesn't even feel like it's been that long. But I was talking to my girlfriend who's become one of my best friends since working in corporate, and she's like, Gab, like, because there was at one point where I was doing, like, 3 jobs just to, like, make everything happen, and also just, like, get this business off the ground. And she's like, "You really only been working your business, like, full time with the time that you've amounted to it or allotted to it for, like, 2 years." So it's like, whoa, it's like it feels like it's been 4 years, but it doesn't at the same time, just because of, like, where my energies were going. And so anyways, yeah, I recently had what I'm calling my second spiritual awakening, and it's kind of crazy because I feel like the first time, so, like, my Saturn return, you're really evaluating just experiences that are kind of imposed on you, what happens to you, and you kind of have to do the healing from that. Whereas, like, the second spiritual awakening, going inward and really, and I think that's necessary if you're doing this work to take things to the next level. I went inward and I was like, oh no, like, this one's almost more challenging because you're sitting with your own shit. So that's where we're at. And so, yeah, that was pretty much summer of 24, like fall up until like now, which is late fall of 2025. So it's been a really intense year, but I think it's going to be one in which I look back on and really think it's probably one of the most, if not the most impactful year of my life.
Ah, that's so beautiful. I know you're in a year 1 this year, and I remember reaching out to
Hmm.
you last year. And just for everyone to know how we know each other, everyone
Yeah.
knows Chelsea, my best friend. And so Gabrielle learned with Chelsea in the soul reading method, and they were in the same class. And so we've kind of been seeing each other at like events of the
Yeah.
wedding and all the things. So it's really been beautiful to connect in that way. And so I've also had kind of like a little spiritual awakening second level this year. And I remember messaging you last year, like, what do I need to prepare for year 9?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's exactly what you said, like kind of having to deal with your own shit. And I feel like mine hasn't ended yet. Like I think it's going to end next March.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so for anyone who is on the spiritual awakening journey, I definitely know like me understanding myself more has helped me evolve and understand like why I am the way I am. And of course, like I am a sun, Leo, moon, Pisces, and rising Gemini. And I'm learning so much about, leading into the Gemini, the lifelong learner, the wise, teacher. So I'm curious for you, how did astrology support you in like really understanding who you were and who
Mhm.
you are and like who you wanted to become according to your like, contracts.
Mhm. I think that's such a great question. I've actually never been asked that on a podcast before, and I think that might be one of my most favorite questions that I've been asked. So thank you for that. So I think it's important to describe like what the sun, moon, and rising are. And every astrologist, I'm trying to say astrologist for the feminine and then astrologer for the masculine, because for me, astrology is naturally and inherently divinely feminine, where I think is that when it comes to human design, it's a little bit more masculine, in my opinion. Um, and so I'm definitely an astrologist, and it's almost like a reclamation of the word in that sense. But the sun is certainly, at least in the chart, every astrologist is going to have a different opinion of it. And the sun is what I relate to, like as representing your ego, but it also represents like where you might, where you're meant to be seen, but also possibly have challenges of being seen as well. And that is going to depend on what sign the sun falls into, as well as the house, which it's this whole intricate system, but we'll keep it at that level. The moon sign really represents your psyche, your inner world, your emotions, and it's also relationship to the feminine. It's also a relationship to your ancestry and so forth, relationship to your mom. So there's a lot of different meanings there. And then the rising sign, I personally see that as like the essence of the soul. It's kind of like if you're a Gemini sun, but you are a Scorpio rising, you're going to come off as more of like a Scorpio than you would a Gemini sun and so forth. So for me, the rising is your most true and accurate representation of like who you are as a soul on this planet. And and the second part of your question, do you mind repeating that?
How did finding out more about yourself and astrology support you in, like, who you were and who you were wanting to become?
Yeah. Well, no one could help me. So I also am a Pisces moon, and there's this meme on Instagram that I've come across. It's like it might even have been on TikTok, the tickety talk, but it was like something to the effect of, if you were a Pisces moon, your family probably didn't deserve you as a child. So you're probably like a really sensitive child, and you're probably a really intuitive, precocious being at that point. You were seeing more than you probably should have for your own good. And that kind of carried with me into adulthood. It was kind of like, okay, like my parents were really supportive in the sense that they didn't really care what I did. It's just like go to school, like get with your degree and kind of do what you want to do. And I've thankfully always followed that trajectory. But I think when everything came crashing down, at least that's how it felt during my Saturn return, because I was going through some really gnarly accusations. There was a lot of money involved. Um, Nothing made sense as to how I ended up in that position. And then when astrology was introduced in a more technical, detailed, structured way, I was like, yes. And for me, it's one of the most, if not the most ancient system in the esoteric world. And I mean, so many of the systems are based on that and work with it. And so it really meant just helped me to understand what I was going through. And even now, and I've come to this place over the last 7 years almost where I have a really good balance with it, where it's kind of like it's, the accountant example where the accountant's busy managing everyone else's, like, finances, but they forget to do it for themselves, but they're aware of how to do it if they had to go tap in. And I try to have a really, healthy balance between not looking too far ahead, but also just having like, "Oh, okay, let me check in and see what's going on and maybe understand why I'm feeling the way I am at that time."
Yeah, I love that so much. As an intuitive, I there's always a sense or a feeling of like what's coming for me or what's coming for the collective, but it was always so supportive to see the astrology or, whatever modality I was looking at and be like, wow, this is like a permission slip that like this time period is not working out for me right now. And it's not me, right? It's something beyond me. And I am meant to just be like reflective and not be in that energy of do or go, which oftentimes I can like definitely fall back into with the masculine programming. And so it's like creating more spaciousness to support me in seeing the clarity of what's next, etc. So this year has definitely felt like for me, like you said, so many changes in a good way, but also really sitting in that energy of like releasing what was no longer serving me, which was like severely uncomfortable. And I know there's been like a lot of polarity in different systems in the world, medical, politics, and all those things. Um, is this something that you know of? I guess, like, what's the energy coming in for 2026 about, like, through
Mm.
astrology, if that's something that's gonna kind of lessen or let up, or if it's kind of, like, gonna dive deeper?
With respect to, like, this world getting more
More
attention
polar
or
more
more polarized?
polarized. Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I think that's just kind of been like the boat we've been on as we've ascended from the 3 to the 5D consciousness. I think that's going to continue, but I think it's going to I don't think it's gonna be as intense as 2025 was. Like, 2026 was I'm actually really excited about it. I think if I look at all of the 2020s, like, the years in the 20s decade, which, by the way, I didn't even know that was referred to as the 20s now. I'm like, "Okay, like, she's getting older." But, so I really enjoyed 2022, and I think maybe I'm biased because that's the year in which I launched my business. But 2026, it's exciting. It's a creative year. It's a really, if we're looking at an element that's most dominant, it would be fire. And fire is all about initiation, it's creativity, it's taking, doing something and then asking for, forgiveness later or permission later, something to that effect, that, expression. But, there's a lot of change that's coming, but it's not change that we haven't already been feeling and or preparing for per what we've experienced in the last 5 years.
Beautiful, beautiful. Something to look forward to, a little levity compared to this year.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of my listeners know about starting my business and how, challenging it was in the beginning for myself. And so I'm curious, now that you've had your business for almost 4 years, like what is like the favorite thing you've done? Like the favorite like project or just the favorite thing that might have like come through that you were like, wow, this is why I'm doing this.
Oh, thank you for asking that, Danny. That's such a good question. I think that's like these are some of my most favorite questions I've been asked on a podcast.
Just
Uh,
channeling this through the records.
yeah, okay, I love it. Here for it. Thank you guys and team. I would say that it's interesting. I have so many fours in my makeup. I'm like fours across the board. If you add up a lot of the like numbers in my chart and my placements, astrologically speaking, a lot of them are fours, and the four is traditionally known as the builder. It's like, the four pegs on a table and its structure and its, goals and all the things and making shit happen. But it's interesting. I prefer a challenge. And I would say that I really enjoy supporting people and becoming more conscious and conscious in general and looking at things from a different perspective. And I also have really appreciated going through this recent shadow work journey that I've been on with my one-to-one clients in my program Emergence, where I'm getting a little bit deeper into maybe what the subconscious blocks might be or limiting beliefs might be. And I think that's a gift that comes quite naturally to me because I'm a double Pisces and Pisces rules over the subconscious mind. But it's really rewarding to be able to hold up the mirror and give tangible present day practical examples to support someone as they're going through their internal shadow work journey, which now that I've like done more work on the lower three chakras, so the root, the sacral, and the solar, I would certainly say I have a new appreciation for it, for them as a whole, and also like life on earth, because I think before I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so ghetto here. And I still say that from time to time, but I enjoy it more here as a human because I understand it. And I did the work to get there too, and I'm continuing to. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because I feel like it really resonates with a session I had last week about like just me embodying the humanity and the discomfort of the emotions and the energy that I'm feeling as I'm like transitioning to moving back to Redondo Beach and selling my condo and just getting married, like, just, like, I feel like it's so quick, and so a lot of that a lot of new cycles comes, like, old cycles that are ready to be released, right? And so I feel like a lot of anger and resentment has been coming up in my field, and so I've been really sitting with it, and, I've realized that it has been something I've been avoiding instead of because I've been prioritizing, let's say, like, planning my wedding and prioritizing love, so I've been, like, healing other cycles, done ancestral healing, but maybe not prioritize, like, the inner turmoil of actually healing or the inner, discomfort of how quickly I'm changing and evolving. And so I've been doing a lot of subconscious work around that. Oh, I
Yeah.
just lost my train of thought. Yeah, go
Well,
on.
no, I wanted to say something to that. I almost think that too, because that's very much like where I started as well. It was like for me sacral, but there was a huge ancestral component to that. And then also, like focusing on the cycles that you're naturally going through, which for you, it's a huge like cycle of like identity and like death and previous versions of self, right? In this like, chapter that you've just closed out and are stepping into. Um, but I almost think you have to go through those initial healing cycles to almost like build a toolbox and expand on the toolbox to do like the really deep work. Because I mean, it's funny, me and my sister, my older sister, Nicole, we were on the podcast together. It's like we would say, like, would we have done this if we knew exactly what we were getting into and how deep this goes? And, sometimes we say, and most of the time we say no. But now that we've done, we've had some years under our belt, it's it gets easier to do it, and you know that there's always gonna be a payoff. So, yeah, it's kind of a necessary evil to do it, and then you can go deeper into those levels that are even more rewarding is what I'm finding.
Absolutely, and, like, kind of just embodying the humanity of the range, and for me, like, sitting in the discomfort or the anger or the frustration is just as good as sitting in, like, the joy because it's just as my soul expanding into that energy or that emotion that wants to be expressed, and it's, like, utilizing that energy as a portal into my humanity, like, more deeply and rooting into my humanity more deeply, and so that's been what I've been currently working through.
Mhm, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, so you have a new astrology course, I believe, that just came
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have in my birth chart, I forget what my astrologist told me because every astrologist has one of their own. You learn from people that come before you and have been doing this a little bit longer. But she said I have some star in my chart that speaks to like me training other astrologists as well. And it's funny because this year, although it's brought a lot of like internal challenges, it's funny. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I actually was able to create and like show up for myself, which I don't know how I did that looking back because I was dying. But yeah, my first course came out and it was called Uncharted. And it's funny because natal charts, like charts, there's like a play on words and I like single one words. So, anyways, it's a natal astrology course. It's basics one on one. And, my students get access to me if they, pretty much invest in the course. And I continue to work with them over the years if they have anything that comes up for them. But it's not only understanding astrology and the fundamentals, but also understanding how their intuition plays a key role in understanding that because astrology is my opinion, like I said, quite feminine, but there's a technical component to it. And then there's also, an intuitive component. It's like, well, how did you get there? How'd you know that? And it's directly your higher self coming through. And so it's been very rewarding to be able to bestow a lot of that information that I've learned over the years to the students that I've had come through the course that are just genuinely appreciative of it. And by the time that this comes out, I'll be working on the secondary course, which is exciting. And it'll be transits, which I'm hoping to launch in the spring of 26. Wow.
Oh my goodness, that's so amazing. Would that be kind of like with the astrocartography?
Astrocartography is a whole different thing. I think we would get into it to an extent, but it's more focused on predictions and how I work with astrology to do predictions. Because actually, before I did my round of shadow work, I would identify as a highly predictive reader. Whereas now that I've done the lower three grounding and the work around that, not that I'm not going back to it or staying with predictions. I guess it's just not it's not as important right now. I guess. And yeah, transits is gonna kind of just put onto paper and into like the formidable form of like everything I've learned over the years and supporting my clients with that.
Oh, that's so beautiful and amazing. I remember I went to a reading with you for my wedding date and I think my
Mhm.
bachelorette, and I was like, "What would be the best energy?" Oh, and for the
Yeah.
divine remembering, for my divine
Yeah.
remembering course, I was like, "What would be the best?" And, like, you were even able to articulate to me, like, what kinda clients were coming in
Did that work
according.
out?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so beautiful, so wonderful. And I'm in my
Yay.
second currently, when this is done, the second round will have ended, and I'll have the new dates for the next round for 2026. But it's kinda crazy, like, now that I'm thinking about it, it's so quick. Like, I feel like I just met with you a couple months ago, and I don't even know
Yeah.
that it's like, maybe it was a year now.
Yeah, I just feel like 2025 also went by so fast and 2026 has the same cadence. Like that's the majority of the year is going to happen in the first 6 months and it's just going to be like almost kind of like whiplash. Like everything happens so quickly where you're just like I don't have time to like look back in the past and let that be what informs me of how I move forward. It's like life is happening so quickly. So I'm excited to see what um is created next year. And for me, creativity, creation is divine feminine as well. And it feels like there's almost like the initial stages of that like paradigm shift of the matriarchy. So we'll see.
Yes, and you know what I see with this too? A lot of solar plexus upgrades next year. Like,
Mm,
anything you didn't feel, like, worthy of or good enough with, or and, like, I definitely think it's deeply connected to the third eye of, like, your sovereignty, of your sight, of your knowing, and I really feel like a lot of, like new goddess energy, new intuitive energy, like, finally stepping into their power.
I love that. In your experience, if you don't mind me asking, with Reiki being your thing, have you noticed that like the work on the solar plexus is kind of one of those energy centers that gets that up level and upgrade as a result of focusing on the others?
Absolutely, because once you increase your connection to the seen and the unseen world, it, like, opens up this, like, new confidence that you
Mhm.
were, like, never taught before, but maybe, like, always felt like something was there. So it absolutely is like a byproduct of that, and solar plexus is hugely, like, one of the biggest, I think, wounds too that I see with a lot of healers coming in, and so Reiki definitely supports in healing that.
Why do you think healers have that expression the most?
I think we are meant to help support others in healing what we heal through, and I think there's, like, something about our intentionality with, like, just how pure we
Mhm.
want, like, the world to be with love, right? It's, like, our intentionality behind it, and I think there's something about when you're able to really transmute that fear or that not good enough or not worthy enough into like true power and sovereignty, you
Mhm.
become that like expression of light for others and that inspiration and that permission slip, for others to see, to expand into.
Yeah, that's very well said and articulated. And it's so true. Like you help heal others through what you've gone through yourself, especially if you're in this line of work. So couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Are there any subconscious, I guess, cycles or lessons that you're seeing in your clients that you might see like up leveled or transmuted next year?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily just next year, but I can tell you what I'm seeing right now. And I wonder if that's either like a reflection of the work I've done or if it's just kind of one of those common themes that maybe it kind of hits people the most when we're programmed and we go into school and, our parents, especially us being millennials, we have, I think a little bit of a different, standard that we're held to compared to maybe the generations before and after us, and so I think we're more aware than maybe, previous generations or other generations, and so I'm seeing a lot of root chakra themes around, like, abandonment and safety and security, and so much of what I've seen through also my own personal, experience and healing with it is, like, money themes. I've seen so many money themes in the last 5 months especially, and it kind of and I think over the long term, I think we might see this reality come into a play, but it's interesting to see how many people place their safety in the form that is money and that being currently rewritten and how many people give their power away to the form of money without even being consciously aware of like that being programming that was probably put on them by their parents and just society as a whole. And dancing that dance this last year has been really fun to go through on a personal experience. Not easy, but very enlightening.
I feel like that's a story I'm also rewriting, and it's been like a 5-year journey, so I'll let you know when I'm out of it.
I'm like so big on the Gene Keys right now. I think that might be like my number one spiritual text. But in there, Richard Rudd, he's like the dream guest for me on my podcast. Like if I could have anyone, I'm like Richard Rudd. So, but because he's so prolific, but he says like money could be your greatest spiritual teacher if you let it be.
That's so beautiful. I The Gene Keys is like a derivative of human design.
Yeah, it's like, it expresses and details the gates in which the are in the body graph in human design, and if there's planetary placements in there, both conscious and unconscious, and it's all shadow work. It's really what it is. So maybe that's why I'm vibing with it because my business is transitioning to that.
I love that so much. So, where can all my listeners find you, and what else are you offering for 2026?
Thank you so much. So yeah, I right now at time of recording, so the first month of the year, or time of recording drop, I should say, I'll be doing your head readings and I have different tiers for that. So I have my annual on demand year ahead workshop, which is very feasible. It's accessible for $33. So you get a nearly 2 hour recording of every single month, predictions, all the key dates, and a 125-page plus PDF to go through as you do that. So that was a labor of love. And that also informs me for the other two offerings, which is I have the mid-tier offering and that's available on my Etsy shop and that's a written year ahead reading. So you'll get a card for each month and then key dates for the month and how that affects you. And that's $88. And then my big kahuna, the best deal is 222 for a recording, in-person reading. It's through Zoom key dates written out, and then your energy is also read in that session, and that's available. They're all available, linked on my website in some capacity. But yeah, that's what I have going on for the beginning of the year, and then I'll be dropping some follow-up astrology courses, and we'll see what the rest of the year brings. Oh, and then
So
coaching. I have coaching available too.
beautiful, so amazing. And then her website is, I'll link it all, but it's awaastrology.com.
Yeah.
And so, Gabby, is there any last wisdom that wants to come through for the collective?
Hmm. I just saw the word trust, and I saw like trust that you're where you're going is where you're meant to be going, and it's all going to work out for you. So maybe that was just as much of a message for me as it was for your audience, but I saw the word trust. So yeah.
I feel in alignment with that as well, so I will receive that fully. Thank you so much. This has been such an honor to co-create this space with you.
Thank you so much for having me on equally as well. I feel that way too.
Bye.